Was it you who introduced or was it me?
It was you.
It was me. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Mental Health Monday. We've got a bit of a theme going for you guys. This is talking about Halloween and mental health. And you might be thinking, how are those two things even related? But we will go into it. First, my name is Bee. I'm a mental health and wellness peer educator. This is, I think, my third year with CAPS. And Leah, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. My name's Alia Jessup. I'm also a mental health and wellness peer educator, and I've been one for several years now. Awesome. So today we're just going to kind of run through things and talk about the horror genre in a whole and how it depicts mental illness. We're going to be touching on Halloween tourism and how that also stigmatizes mental health disorders. And we'll also be kind of ending with the impact you can make and how you can help surrounding the stigma of mental health as it relates to Halloween.
Cool. So we'll be starting with the horror genre. So horror movies, horror TV shows. And the biggest thing we're talking about is tropes that you see. So a trope is like a common theme or a motif that you see across movies and TV shows. Excuse me. So this is some common ones is like walking away from an explosion is to make the main character look cool and unbothered by danger. You have the psychic dog where, you know, the dog doesn't want to come into the new house that the family just moved into because it senses the ghost is there, but the family doesn't know that it's there yet. So that's like foreshadowing danger. And then you have the infinite ammo trope where no matter how long the shootout goes, the main characters never seem to run out of ammo in their two-shot shotgun to enhance the action and make the audience feel that the main characters are in control and that they're going to win. Tropes are used for a specific reason. They're made to have the audience feel and think in certain ways. And this influences the way we watch our media, but it can also influence the way we live our lives and perceive others.
Yeah, so just a couple of examples, it's not exhaustive, of the harmful horror movie tropes. So we have the I'm not crazy that you can kind of see in the movie Smile, Invisible Man, and Orphan, where the main character suffers a real threat that no one else is noticing, whether that is, part of the villain trope of the movie, or they're experiencing something paranormal. And the other people around them aren't noticing that. And the main character is seen to be losing their mind. And occasionally they even end up kind of falsely admitted into psychological wards or, getting psychological help. This can also kind of be seen in like the psychopath escaped. So we can see that in kind of like the original Halloween and Silence of the Lambs, where the person is a psychiatric patient and they escape and they are the killer, and they kind of go out and do bad things. We also have like kind of like I have mental illness, which you can kind of see in Split and The Call, where the villain, I'm using this kind of in quotes to kind of show that maybe not everyone with mental illness is the villain, but they are kind of given a chance to explain their motives, and they're using mental illness or past trauma to kind of like explain what they do. And that's the explanation for their actions.
So why are these harmful? I know we just went into it a little bit, but we want to go into a little bit more detail. Is the I'm not crazy trope is it's meant to induce frustration, right? So we, the audience, know that the threat is real, but the people around the main character don't believe them. This can introduce like the notion, and most of the time these characters are women in the movies that I mentioned in, or that Aaliyah mentioned in the previous slide. The main character was a woman. They talk about their hallucinations, delusions, beliefs. They say that they're not worth believing or that they're dangerous, because at some point, most of the time when they're experiencing this threat that others don't notice, they will eventually retaliate with some type of violence, which leads others to perceive them as, oh, they've just lost their mind. So that can be harmful to people who are actually experiencing hallucinations and delusions, and faulty beliefs that, well, just ignore it. It's not real. It doesn't matter. Um, and the last two kind of couple together is that when you have a villain who's an escaped psychiatric patient, or you have a villain whose main motivation is their mental illness or their trauma, that kind of leads the audience to believe that those who have mental illness, those who have been in psych wards or are in psych wards, are dangerous and they need to be kept away from society, instead of, you know, being around people where they could snap at any moment and you could be next. You know, it leads to the thought that people who are mentally ill are dangerous and perpetuate violence, when really people who are mentally ill are more likely to suffer that violence instead of actually perpetuate it.
So to kind of change gears a little bit, let's talk about Halloween tourism. And this might be a new term for some folks. So we'll go into it and kind of explain it a little bit deeper. And this can kind of include like haunted asylum or hospital or ghost tours of locations. So we kind of have this tagline from this attraction, like, you would be crazy to tour this twisted asylum, talking about the lost souls that remain. And it's talking about how this asylum was home to the Carolinas most chronically insane, the most crazy psychopaths. This is one place you don't want to be committed. So this is used in an actual attraction, hoping to gather interest and intrigue from people to kind of get them to come and kind of see what all the fuss is about.
So what is Halloween tourism? It's kind of a phrase, I kind of made it up, but it kind of encompasses the idea that during October, attractions are set up for people to visit for the purpose of celebrating Halloween. So it's haunted houses, Halloween attractions within like existing parks. So, Cedar Point does the Halloween weekends. Spirit Halloween's popping up so you can, buy costumes and Halloween supplies. Your existing grocery stores having those seasonal sections of Halloween stuff. And if you have a content creator, maybe they're making more horror leaning content. But a big part of Halloween tourism is dedicated to like asylum tours and hospital tours, where you travel through either a built set or through an actual real abandoned asylum. You might think of, the more popular one in Michigan is the Eloise Asylum, which was actually a real asylum that they have rebranded into like an attraction and something people want to visit. So they can get spooked by the ghosts of the patients that used to live there, and they offer tours throughout October.
Yeah, and so especially if we're even talking about Eloise, it's existed in that location on Michigan Ave for 100 years almost now, and it's gone through several different kind of sections of its life, but it was bought by a private company, and now there is fairly expensive tours that happen there. And you can see, if you drive by, they have food trucks set up and other things to help gather interest for when people are there on the tours, that they can just eat on site, excusing the fact that there are many unmarked graves of people there that have unfortunately lost their lives at Eloise. So if we're kind of looking at stats, we have major asylum attractions in Michigan. We have 7. Major asylums in the US, we have over 20. And if we're kind of thinking about the peak number of mental institutions, we're looking at hundreds, and even today, when we think about mental institutions and like their current population, we still have quite a few in the United States.
Yeah, so the point is kind of to like, first of all, to go from like 500,000 to 71,000, that's great, because there was that whole deinstitutionalization movement that happened in the 50s. So now there's I don't want to say very few, because 71,000 is not a few, but there's less than there used to be. But this is to say that there still are people who are in asylums and mental hospitals and psychiatric institutions who are actively being mistreated to this day. And so these stats kind of serve to illuminate the fact that even though these attractions are kind of like, oh, for fun, is that they kind of have real life consequences and the things that they present to people just to scare them, I guess. And in terms of just another stat is that there are people, 2.2 million people in the US who are experiencing a severity of mental illness that would require them to enter a psychiatric institution, but are receiving no treatment. And these are the people that suffer the most when we talk about these harmful horror tropes or these asylum tours, that these are the people that get impacted the most by those faulty perceptions of how we see the mentally ill, because not all mentally ill people are violent, but sometimes they can become violent towards themselves or towards others in times of distress, in times of vulnerability. And if we already have those harmful tropes inside of our heads, it can be very easy to give into that bias and be like, oh, that person's violent. I don't want to be around that person. That person shouldn't be part of society. So it's important to take a look at these stats and remember that there are real people who are being affected even right now when we consume this type of media and go to these asylum tours.
And we kind of touched on this of like, why are they harmful? When we have these tropes such as escaped patients coming to do harm, or violent patients that are harming the innocent, or they're unhinged and not connected to reality, it shows that these aren't like real people, they're not humanized. And it implies that people that are mentally ill, all mentally ill people, are dangerous and deserve and should be institutionalized because they could harm people. That there's the possibility of that. It causes a perception of the mentally ill that is different than our current reality. That the trope is that they perpetuate violence versus that they are usually more likely to suffer from it. And they can suffer from it for many different ways. We're talking interpersonally, systemically, or institutionally.
So here, this is kind of a shorter section. It's the last section. It's kind of how you can help. Now, obviously, we can't, as one person, we can't shut down Eloise, right? If we decide not to go as a result of this presentation, they're not going to lose money, essentially. So it's hard to make those big systemic changes, but there are little things that you can do in your life to maybe help the mentally ill people around you who maybe you don't even know are suffering. So there are a few things that you can do, and I'll let Alia take this one.
So we can kind of do a couple things. You can do your research on movies and see how they depict mentally ill people. You can look up the reviews and kind of see how they're going about it and figure out if it's worth putting your money and your investment in and your views towards this movie. And you can get a feeling if it's the research that went into it's based on fact or not. You can think about where you go before you book your slot in a haunted asylum tour. Maybe we think about that and maybe do some other attractions that maybe depict people in a better light or totally don't include mentally ill people as part of their attraction. A lot of times we'll get the same amount of scares, someone just jumping out at you, and a jump scare is a totally different thing than kind of what some other attractions are showing. And you can have empathy, you can sympathize, and know that everyone's life and experience is different, and everyone has baggage with them. And it's free and it's very kind to exercise kindness when something like this is coming up and harmful. I will also throw out there that also look about what costumes you're wearing. Are you wearing an escaped fugitive costume? Are you wearing a costume from a movie of someone who is being depicted like this as a escaped, or just someone who's suffering mental illness and it's making them crazy? So think about your costuming and, maybe you need to approach your friends and talk about how they are costuming as well.
That's a very good point about the costumes, because there are a lot of like, oh, evil nurse who like you're dressing up as the people who mistreat the mentally ill. That's a good one. But that's kind of the end of our presentation. And we've got, this one is freaking me out. The exorcist picture there, that's a little close up for me. But that's kind of the end of our little presentation here. If you are interested in getting more information, you are welcome to email umdearborncaps@umich.edu for more information, maybe even about this topic or about some events that CAPS is holding, or to make an appointment. CAPS is free and confidential, or is it confidential or is it private?
No, CAPS itself is confidential, so they are separate from kind of the servers that the rest of the university uses. So your teachers can't see if you go, your parents can't see that you go, and it's confidential in that way.
Right. Yeah, so that's kind of all we had. So if you are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. And we will see you next Monday with a new topic.
See y'all.